How can I be a millionaire by this time next year?
Actually realize what a dangerous trap that is until you're in it.
Know that this was a problem. You've not fixed it. It's just going to come a bigger scale, right?
That and understand the warning signs before they get too big and kind of bring that under control.
£1 million going on. How much of that is actual money that you're going to keep in your pocket? Or how much money?
Welcome to the Lumen Sense podcast. My name is Adrees. I'm the creative director. I'm joined by Mohsin and Annissa, who are growth consultants. This is the podcast where we teach you how to grow your brand and make more money, basically, right? that's what it's supposed to be.
That'd be a good start.
So, if you want to grow it, then you're in the right place. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes of the podcast. And if there's a link in the bio as well, if you want to speak to us about anything that we mentioned in this podcast or anything outside of it as well regarding your own business. Today's topic is going to be about basically, can you grow your business too quickly to the point where it becomes damaging? You actually do more harm to your business than good. Is that even possible? What do you guys think?
Who are you asking, me or her?
Whoever wants to chime in on this.
I think this is a very interesting topic. Actually, normally people are talking about whether nobody ever talks about growing too fast. Everybody wants to grow too fast.
Everyone wants to go quickly.
That's it.
How can I be a millionaire by this time next year?
I don't think I've come across a business person that says I want to grow slowly. I think that comment doesn't exist, and I think that's why I'm really excited to discuss this today about like how growth can be such a good thing, but it can also be a very dangerous element of a business. Because if you grow too fast, and the saying goes, if you grow too fast, growth can kill, right? And it can kill in a very bad way, right? And if the business is not set up for that, I'm pretty sure that's not what the viewers want to hear. I'm not sure that's what you guys want to hear. But in this here, we're not going to be cutting any corners. I'm not going to be saying things that you want to hear. But growth can absolutely kill.
But I mean, surely, look, if you got a business, you want it to get from A to B as quick as possible, right? If your goal is $1 million, then you want to get there as quick as possible. 5 million, 10 million. But so what is the time frame then? What would make a time frame or what would not make a time frame?
I guess it's not so much about time frames, it's more about making sure that you're setting up your systems in a way from day one, or at least very, very early on, so that you can have a good idea of when you do reach that stage, what systems, what processes, your fulfillment requirements, your staff requirements, you have an idea of what they need to be like, and then as a working roadmap that at each stage, at each milestone, so to speak, what you have at each stage, rather than just having a figure of revenue and maybe profit, like, okay, I want to reach, I don't know, £1 million in revenue. But you also need to link that to, okay, what does that look like? How many people do I need in fulfillment? What kind of size of a warehouse do I need? How many, SKU items will I need to reach that stage? And I think there's a lot of people don't realize is that it's not so much about the marketing and the revenue that comes from that. It's all the stuff that can support that level of growth and support that level of marketing.
I mean, I think that might be a good way to structure this particular discussion. Actually, I think it might be very, very useful to business owners or to be business people or current founders to watch this. And I think maybe we can split out the discussion into maybe looking at each one of these elements and just talking about how, for example, how growth can, how growing too fast can cause a problem in marketing and how it can cause a problem in customer services and how it can cause, because the main thing with a business is you want to always have positive momentum. The whole point of growth is supposed to be a positive thing. The problem becomes when you're trying to grow and you grow too fast and negative momentum starts to build as a result of that.
What is negative momentum?
So negative momentum is that you're trying to go, so you're going from, let's say, I'm going to make random numbers here, I'm just plucking them out of thin air. Let's say you want an arbitrary figure of you want to hit £1 million revenue target for the year, and you're currently sitting at, year end, you're hitting at, random number 100, you're currently doing £100,000 a year, you think, yeah, get the £1 million, that's most business people's, right? Like, I want to make my first million, By the way, just to let you know, the million is not that exciting. But let's just say you do.
All right.
You get to the million. You get to the thing with any of these milestones, right? Especially with their revenue milestones, you get to the milestone and it's just like, okay, well, what about the next one?
Exactly.
And it's never satisfying. And I don't know why that is. If it's just an innate thing that entrepreneurs have, like you're just never satisfied with whichever target you set yourself, whichever milestone you finally reach. You're always thinking like, well, okay, it's not that. My life hasn't changed that much. Maybe it'll change when I reach 5 million.
I agree. And I think the reason is because most people going into business, you don't have any expectations, business is not glamorous. You go in there, you just hear the word million and you think, wow, million is great. But then the saying is, right, you got revenue is vanity and profit is sanity, right? You've got £1 million going on. How much of that is actual money that you're going to keep in your pocket or how much money is going to stay in the business? And that's the big difference.
Especially with D2C as well, £1 million is not the same as £1 million in a service-based business.
I mean, you're a numbers numbers person. £1 million revenue with an average net profit of 10%. Most businesses or
that's 100k. You're taking home 100k if you're not leaving anything back into your business for growth. So if you're a sole investor, a sole director, and you're happy with the 100k that you want to take, but you're not leaving any money back in the business to reinvest back into growth.
Especially if you're bootstrapping the business.
Especially with bootstrapping, it's so important that you are conscious of the fact that the number that you see at the bottom of your profit and loss account, your P&L, that is not the number that you're going to be taking home into your account. Forget the tax side of things or anything like that. Just leaving profit in the business and not touching it and using that to reinvest back into growth. That is the biggest thing that can kill a business, because you feel like you see all that money coming in and you're like, oh, well, let me just withdraw it and my accountant can sort it out later. But that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about the tax side of things. I'm talking about the reinvestment of the profits back into growth. And I think this is where a lot of business owners fall down. They see the 1 million, they see the 100k, they think they've made it, and then the business doesn't even last long enough to see the next milestone.
But just coming back to Adrees' point on this issue of what is negative momentum, just so that we're clear what we mean by that. So let's say we're trying to get to this £1 million figure. We're doing £100,000 now. You're trying to 10x your revenue, right? If my maths correct, my maths is rusty nowadays. You
early in the morning for you, isn't it?
you know the teachers used to say, right? That is there going to be a day where you're going to have calculators in your phone? I think this is the day. I haven't worked out something in my head in a long time. So let's say you're doing £100,000 a year, you're trying to get to £1 million, right? And you just go for it, and you think I'm going to pump everything into marketing, right? Now, 10x in your business is something big. Going from £100,000 revenue in a year to £1 million revenue, there's going to be sizable differences. Now let's start with one of them.
Just for context, just to put it in perspective, that's like saying going from 8k sales a month to around 80k sales a month.
There you go, right?
So do you think that's possible without serious sort of investment, a capital injection or cash injection?
I think let's treat this case study as like an idealistic scenario, right? Let's just say let's say you have the funds, right? Let's say you have the money to pump into it. Let's say you've got the means to get to the £1 million revenue, right? You think you've got money for marketing, you've borrowed money, you've invested money, or you've bootstrapped it, you've got profit sitting there, you've got another venture, you've got a job, whatever it is, you put money into the business, you think, okay, I'm doing £8,000 a month now, I'm going to get £80,000. What most people will do, and most business owners will do in this scenario, which is, I'm going to get this money and I'm going to blast it into marketing. And for D2C brands, that's where the biggest thing in your balance sheet is your marketing. I'm going to go crazy with Facebook ads, I'm going to go Meta ads and Instagram ads, I'm going to go on TikTok, and I'm going to go this, that, I'm going to spend for PR, I'm going to go crazy with that figure. Question is, let's say you put that money in marketing. Do you even know, and this is how growth can kill, do you even know that what your cost per acquisition was to make the £8,000 revenue? How much did it cost you to get that one customer? Was it £10? Was it £15? Was it £20? This customer that buys from you for £20, let's say it cost you £20 to get that one customer, what's your profit on that? Does this customer come back after 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, or is that the only time they ever buy? Do they have a lifetime value? So if you don't know these things, and now you've gone in and you think, okay, you've not done any of these numbers, and you've just gone and just go, okay, I'm going to go straight in, I'm going to put £50,000 in ad budget on a monthly basis because I just want to get more revenue, but you don't know how profitable your actual cycle is. You have no idea. So what are you actually building? Right?
So what would you say if somebody was to answer that and saying that basically my return on ad spend, my ROAS, is like my North Star? As long as I can maintain my 2.1 or 2.2 ROAS, I'm good. Does that tell the full picture?
No.
And is that sufficient to sustain that level of growth that quickly?
I think most competent marketers and most business owners, in fact, will know. And I think ROAS is a very arbitrary figure, because ROAS is obviously most ad platforms, they like to claim the return on ad spend that they're getting. As we know, any successful business owner will know, any new business owners will need to understand that your return on ad spend is not just what the return that you make on the platform, it's the whole funnel, right? If somebody's coming, let's say you might even be making not a profitable on the first or when somebody buys from you, but if that customer's got a lifetime value of 6 months, and they continue to purchase from you, maybe in the long run, you'll actually be more profitable, right? So you not just have to look at your ROAS, you have to look at your email list, you have to look at your lifetime value customers, you have to look at your blended ROAS across all the different platforms, you have to look at all these different areas, right, to see if you're actually becoming profitable or not. And the numbers don't lie, right? And I think I can't remember, I read it once, but looking at in-platform metrics, are usually useless. Business owners really need to look at their central dashboard, which in most cases is Shopify. Shopify is what will tell you the truth, right? Most D2C brands will have a Shopify website, and that one you can spend what you want on money marketing. If the revenue and your profit, those are the two figures that are going to tell you what's happening to my revenue, what's the profit, and what's the money in bank. That's going to tell you the full story. You can have raw figures what you want. If the money in the bank and your cash flow and your revenue is not supporting that, and Shopify is not giving you the right answer, it's all an illusion, right? It's all just making up sense, and that's where growth can kill, because you may go from that £8,000 monthly basis to that £80,000 monthly revenue, but then you get to the £80,000 revenue, you think, where's my money? I was still struggling with cash flow then, and I'm still struggling with cash flow now.
Except
right?
you got loads of
way more headache.
you got way bigger stress with running that kind of operation.
And to get to that £8,000 to £80,000 figure, to get to that figure, what happens, right? You now not only, and this is what most owners will do, they will think about things retrospectively. So you go from 8,000, now you're getting to 80,000. Let's say you've now got to £20,000 mark.
Whoops, so sorry to interrupt the podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast or taking benefit from it, please consider subscribing to us with the button below. Also, if you have a business that you want to grow and want to scale, and you want to scale it profitably and successfully, there's a link in the description below that you can click, and you can jump on a call with us, and we can analyze your business and see how we can work together to make more money for you.
The £20,000 revenue, you're going to need staff. You're going to need staff to fulfill that. Now, most business owners will do that retrospectively. You'll get negative feedback. People say, I haven't got my order next day. Now you quickly go get some staff, and you'll get your staff coming into the warehouse.
It's the type of stuff that you tend to get in those situations and are not going to be the ones you want to keep.
Exactly. Now the staff come in, they're not trained because you don't care about the training. You're like, I want to get the orders out. Now you start to get the orders out, but because they haven't been trained, they're making mistakes. Those mistakes are going to the customers. They're giving you negative reviews because guess what?
The return rate skyrockets. All these things.
Exactly. And guess what? Most people don't.
And something that a lot of people don't even think about is the customer service side of things. That when this is all happening in the background, your customer service inbox is going to go from 10 emails a day to 100 emails a day. The longer you take to reply to them, the more negative feedback you're going to keep getting.
Exactly.
And then it's just become such a big monster that you can't control. And it all started from not understanding and projecting and forecasting that growth correctly and putting in the right systems and the processes to be able to do it.
This is a story that you hear all the time as well, isn't it? That, companies when they were small, people would say, oh, this is a good company, customer service is on point, the products are on point. But then they blew up and now it's terrible and I don't buy from them anymore. Right? That's the classic example.
And absolutely. And I think what we've just described there, from orders getting out late or your products not being picked properly, from getting customer services, this is not positive momentum. This is negative momentum. This is across all touch points when people are seeing you on your reviews, they're seeing your internal business is stressed, you're stressed, and every day you're getting up and you're just blowing fire. You're just getting a fire extinguisher in the morning and getting up and just spraying the whole room because you think, okay, this order didn't go out, that didn't go out.
But as a business owner, you feel like you're doing a lot. You have really you're such an efficient person. You wake up, there's so much to do, bang, 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 got so many fires to put out, so many people to deal with, and you feel like you've made it, even though the number in your bank account is not necessarily reflecting that, right?
And I think that is obviously the false perception of productivity, right? You think that you get up in the morning and you just work till the last minute and putting fires out. And I think I read this book, because I think it's a very popular book, and it's called The 7 Atomic Habits or something like that. I can't remember the book name on top of my head. But in that book, it talks about, it has this quadrant it builds, right? And it says that people often spend their time, most business owners, or forget business people, most productive people, or people who waste a lot of time, on the contrary, people waste their time, they spend a lot of their time in the quadrant of putting out fires. They never can sustain build. They can never think ahead. All they're doing is, they got a fire today, they start in the morning, and by the evening they put out a fire. The next morning, guess what? There's another fire, and they put. The most productive people, they're always in a situation where they're working in the quadrant with things that are going to lead to a fire, but they're making sure those things are nipped in the bud from scratch. So they never let that fire occur. So in a business, to take that case to a business owner, look, as a business owner, no matter how much you plan, there are always going to be things that are going to come out of the blue. But what I'm saying is that the reason why growth can kill is you need to think way ahead. And this is what you call the word forecast, right? You will say, okay, I'm going from £8,000 to £80,000. This £80,000 is my North Star. That's where I want to get to. You would make a case, for me to achieve £80,000 right now, currently, my overheads are X. My employees are Y. My customer service is this. The stock I have in hand is, you put that. Now, if I'm going to get to £20,000, for example, you forecast it, you think, okay, I'm going to need another potentially, if it gets to that, I'm going to need another 2 staff members. Potentially, I'm going to probably need another X amount of stock in holding. I'm going to have access to that stock, right? We're also going to need, so you have the forecast. You have a forecast for 20,000. You may have a forecast for 40,000. You may have a forecast for 60,000 or 80,000. Although none of that may occur, and forecasts are as good as the paper on it. But what it does, it gives you that foresight to think well in ahead and have that thought process. Think, okay, do you know what? I know that when I am my business is increasing to the scale, I'm going to have to, in the back of my mind, potentially be preparing for staff, for example. So what would you do? Maybe you might go to agencies. You might go open up a relationship with an agency, speak to them, say, look, potentially I've got a busy period coming up. My demand is going to go up. Potentially, I'm going to need some staff. What's going to be my notice? How much time am I going to need? You may say to them, okay, what is going to be the I'm looking for these type of staff members. How quick will it be? You may want to call them in for a trial, not to work, but come in for a trial in advance to see. You might want to start thinking to yourself, okay, if I have staff members coming in, how am I going to teach them? Do you have something written on a piece of paper? And this is why most business owners, they are as good as they are involved in the business. The minute they start after hiring people, because everything was in their mind, and they were the top end of everything, and nothing's on a piece of paper. You are everything, and now you've got 4 staff new members that have come in. You expect them to think like you. You expect them not to sleep at night. You expect them to have your business or your concern the way you. They're not going to do that. You got to tell them A, B, C, D. You don't have that on a piece of paper. Right? So maybe putting your processes on a piece of paper that you can teach to somebody. Maybe customer service. Okay, you will know, okay, to get to my £8,000 mark, these are my most problematic customer service issues. You'll start making macros. You'll start thinking, okay, because when you make more sales, proportionally your customer service is also going to increase, right? So if you're getting 50, or let's say for 8,000, you're getting 10, 20 emails a week. Maybe when you hit 20,000, maybe that'll hit to 50, 60. That doesn't mean your companies become worse. Naturally, products and the gold and delivery delays, something's going to get broken in shipping. Maybe there's a delay, maybe there's a logistic delay, or maybe
this is something that panics a lot of business owners as well. But it's actually quite normal that as you scale proportionally in terms of sales, the number of emails you get naturally
absolutely
and a proportional rate. But when it goes out of proportion, that's when there's
what's normally a good percentage? Anissa's normally good at this in terms of percentage. What is it? Emails, is it 2%?
It varies depending on what you're selling. Naturally, like if you're a clothing brand or clothing or footwear, they have the highest returns rate naturally, so you can expect that. But if it's something that is not within those two industries, I don't know, maybe 1%, 2% of your overall orders in a week, that's how many tickets or emails you should be kind of expecting of problems to arise, whether that's, again, like you said, delays by the courier, things broken in transit, things going missing, and that's just a natural part of business. So it's not.
And that's a strategy as well, isn't it? When a growth can kill, because some customers will take advantage of returns policies, right? Again, if you're listening to this podcast, then that was something that you can predict, that as your business gets bigger and you get busier, when your business starts to grow and people can see you're growing, people will care less about sending returns back to you. So having proper shipping returns policies, creating an abstraction. And I'm not sounding unethical, but creating an abstraction for how returns can take place, right? Making sure that process is in place. So I think in not in summary, but I'm just waiting for somebody to plug in some more questions for people. I feel like I can just go on for hours on this issue because growth can actually kill in so many different ways, right? And just looking at even if you look at from a customer service standpoint, if your email is great, if your email is coming thick and fast, and they're getting up to a serious percentage, you start to think, okay, am I doing something wrong? Is my product not good? And also, you will know what your problems are in the business at £8,000 revenue. You will know that.
Let's go a bit more towards the number side of things, because I know there's going to be some people watching this and think a few extra emails, I don't mind. Or staff, it's fine. I can quickly jot it down in a Word document, the process and stuff. But I want to see the money. But you were saying that you don't actually see the money. so how does that work?
So it comes down to if you have a D2C brand, cash flow is literally the lifeblood of the business. Like even.
What do you mean by D2C? I think for some of the viewers might not understand what
D2C is an e-com online brand where you're getting products manufactured from your manufacturer and you're shipping it directly to the end consumer.
So essentially anything product that you sell, right?
But not through retail.
Not through drop shipping, it's just more sort of if you have your own brand or white labeling your brand, the general term. that we.
So as long as you've got a product that you're selling through delivery off your website, it's a quality D2C brand.
If you're getting it according to your own brand
Okay,
spec, so
perfect.
you're not wholesaling or
Okay.
retailing or anything. Yeah.
Got you.
So so cash flow is the biggest thing that you can be extremely profitable. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize as well, that you can be on paper really, really profitable, really healthy profit margins, and yet you're still constantly going, 1 minute your bank account can have £50,000 in it, and 2 days later it'll have like £68 in there, because once you have to pay for your stock up front, especially if you have not sort of got that commercial relationship with your suppliers where you can agree to sort of terms, and maybe you're slightly less established and you can't really get any credit sort of terms with them. You have to pay for your stock up front. You have to obviously pay for your overheads. You're going to have fulfillment costs, whether you're in a fulfillment center or you have your own warehouse, there'll be costs attached to that you pay irrespective of what your sales are. You have to be paying your staff, and don't forget, it's not just if you're paying a staff member 30k a year, it's not 30k a year, because you have to pay pension contributions, you have to pay, NICs and tax and everything on top of that. So that's all something that you have to pay, irrespective again of what your sales are like. If you're having a bad season or a bad month or a bad week, those costs still have to go out. If you're depending on how you've sort of set up your business, if you're paying back any loans or anything like that, again, very rarely are they going to be dependent or fluctuating on how your business, how well or bad your business is going. So cash flow is one of those things where you have to really, really be walking a really tight line to make sure that you have enough cash to sustain yourselves for the next few months. Even if it's a worst case scenario, sales don't go according to how you project, you have enough cash in the bank, not hypothetical profit that's about to come in, cash in the bank that is going to be able to sustain you for whatever X length of time that you have. Taking all these things into account with an online brand where it's very, very cash heavy type of business where you need the cash up front before you can get the sales from it. And these people think that this is only just in the early, like when you start out, okay, well, I need £10,000 for stock, but don't worry, I'll get the sales in, I'll make £20,000 for it. But the hardest part is that juggling act of month to month and year to year, keeping in a cash flow positive position, because if you do want to...
I mean, you say month to month. I think in some cases it might even be week to week, would it not?
Yeah, especially when you get slightly bigger and slightly larger, where your costs, so if you're placing an order with your supplier for £50,000, that is a substantial cost that needs to get out of your business bank account. And your sales need to be sufficient the week before to be able to cover that, as well as keeping money in for all the general day-to-day running of the business as well. And one of the biggest sort of problems that can come is where you kind of don't forecast for long enough. So people think, okay, well, yeah, of course, I'll get through the end of the month and I'll just about be able to pay the wages end of the month. And okay, we'll do better next month. But that is the biggest sort of trap that you can fall into, where you feel like, okay, if I just juggle a few payments here and there, I'll call my supplier, we're on good terms. I'll just say, instead of paying this week, can I pay you next week? And they'll agree to it because I've never done this before. But that is a really, really, and that's where you kind of know that you're kind of heading down a dangerous road where you are having to juggle payments around, or you're like, okay, well, I can get this Shopify loan. My Shopify dashboard is saying I can get £20,000 and that will help me plug and buy this much stock and this and that. But you don't actually realize what a dangerous trap that is until you're in it. And again, this comes down to unplanned growth, where you feel like because you're spending so much on marketing and you see so many sales come in, that in itself is going to sustain the business. But if the cash in the bank doesn't reflect that, then it's kind of a moot exercise.
So just to put in very simple terms, is like, obviously the sales come in all throughout the month, sort of trickle in, but then when you have the big payments, you have to be, whether it's at the start of the month or the end of the month, but in the overall month, yes, you might be in profit, but the cash flow could kill you potentially.
Yes, it could. And even it's maybe not so much when you're smaller, but when you get bigger, you definitely see trends. Like there's definitely like you have higher sales on certain days of the week. But then, I know I'm getting really nitty into it now, but this is as detailed as a level of thought process needs to go into this, is you say you do have higher sales on a certain day of the week, but the money doesn't come into your bank until 3 days later. So if you're juggling to that level where you have to think really twice and you're refreshing your bank feed to make sure that your rent payment doesn't bounce, that is extremely common. Number one, not a single business person has grown their business to a certain sort of size without encountering cash flow issues. It doesn't exist. But it's about being able to sort of get ahead of that and understand the warning signs before they get too big and kind of bring that under control. And that is, I think, what kind of differentiates a business person that is able to kind of have that foresight to before it gets to that stage, and somebody that kind of just buries their head in the sand.
I agree. So I think that will be useful for the listeners as well, and viewers. I think. Well, let's talk about what are some of the red flags, right? If there's somebody who's watching this, okay, do you know, how do I know if I'm growing too fast? How do you identify? For me, for one thing, for sure, okay, when do you know you're building negative momentum, right? Let's maybe go around and ask how that discussion.
I think that's quite the subjective things, like if you feel like your customers are getting disappointed, you're getting negative reviews,
okay, let's be honest. Negative reviews.
Negative reviews.
People often leave. Okay, I mean, let's be honest. Let's go around the room over here, right? How are you guys more likely to leave a positive review or negative review?
Well, since becoming a business owner, I do think twice before I leave a negative review.
No, but it's like when it's like everybody else, and especially with Uber Eats, right? You eat, you order food from out, have a takeaway, on a Friday evening or something like that on the weekend. You order some food, and it's like, it's been amazing every week. You don't even think about leaving a review. The one day it comes late and it's a bit cold.
Slightly cold.
It's like you get your whole family member, take your phone, that guy, leave a bad review right now, right? And that's just the nature of. So
definitely.
How do you know that what comes too many negative reviews?
It's like you said, if at 8,000, you should have a pretty good idea of the kind of reviews and the feedback that you're getting. And generally speaking, like if you're getting one negative review every couple of months and you understand why that negative review has come about, then when you kind of extrapolate that to a bigger revenue figure, that proportionally should not change too much. Yes, naturally, as you grow, there'll be less people that are, I guess the thing with small businesses is sort of like the micro businesses that you tend to have very loyal customers in the early stages, that they are willing to overlook any problems because of the fact that you are a small business, especially that's part of your brand values. I'm sure you can kind of offer some input into that. Like you're part of your brand values, you're a small business, family-run business, there's a whole, emphasis on, the small batch production and, how every batch is not the same. And obviously that's definitely a marketing point for many small businesses. So
people like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
people
why
like the underdog, right? Everybody likes the
everybody wants to root for the underdog. But the problem is when you kind of get a little bit more established and it becomes a little bit more apparent that this business is growing, that same kind of
affection that they give to you, and
the way I say when they are willing to overlook the mistakes, they're not willing to overlook it because they're like, they've gone really big and they've stopped caring about this.
But it's also a two-way street because the busier you get, the less time you'll naturally have to give to this people. When you've got, 10, 20 customers a week, you're able to, put in a handwritten note into the orders. You're able to give them the odd call, how was it, things like that. But when you put that up to 100, how you
I think, I'm on the fence with that one. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you, because I think as businesses grow bigger, as often people, and as somebody who's grown a brand in the past, right, to quite a significant size, I think people often have this illusion that when the business grows, that the owner stops caring, and I don't think that's true. I know for sure I never stopped caring, it would keep me up at night when the customers would be upset. I think the thing is because you're trying to do so good by your customers. Before, if you've got 10 customers, 15 customers, you need to pick up the phone to them, you can pick up the phone up to them, right? Now you've got, let's say, 500 customers. It's no longer possible to do that. But you still have the same concern for them. You're still running around trying to get the stock in. You're still trying to run around and get the stock prepared. You're still trying to make sure that the emails are responded within one working day. You're still trying to make sure that the product is packed properly. It's not that you care any less. It's more about you've become a more established brand and you've got more things to do. Therefore, your focus is now split amongst people. But I don't think the customer should feel that. Me personally, I think as business owners, if your customers feel like you look after them, you should put processes, and this is part of not building negative momentum, that you need to know. If you made your customers feel valued, and now you're growing as a brand, you need to put things in place. So let's say you're saying there are some businesses that are putting handwritten notes, and now you can't sit there and do 500 handwritten notes anymore. Print it. right? Put a handwritten signature on it. Maybe put a face on it. Maybe send them a text-only email. Maybe have something like have random gifts in some random boxes. Keep that in there, because now to go from putting handwritten notes to never doing anything again, I don't blame the customers. But you should, again, this is also a part of.
And I think also it's very important to still be available. Like the customers that helped you get to your 8 to 10K and beyond, they shouldn't feel like they've kind of just lined your pockets and then you stopped caring about them. So just speaking from experience, like even when I did have employees and I did have staff, the minute a customer would specifically request for me by name and say I would like to speak to her, I would never even conceive the fact of saying, oh well, I'm too important now, I can't jump on a call with a random customer anymore. It's because of the fact that they remembered me by name and they remembered the relationship that we kind of built through them buying and me kind of catering to them in that way. It should never be like, I think this is also kind of where, and it's so easy to get cancelled as well now. So all it takes is for one person to have a bad experience where you kind of not portrayed yourself as a business owner in the most, I guess, humble light. And it can have, and I think especially with kind of like founder-led businesses nowadays, like this new sort of
it has its pros and
trend
cons
of the founder being the face of the brand. As with any social media, people feel like they know you intimately, even when they don't, because you select what you show to them on your brand page, but they feel like they know you intimately, and therefore they feel like they have a certain level of access over you. And when they feel like you're not kind of, because you are a business owner, you are acting like a business owner, and because they think that, oh well, they've stopped acting like my friend, it's a problem.
I think the majority of people know that as a business owner, you're not their friend, right? And I don't think they're expecting you to either. But I think the most important...
No, but it's also an element of, I don't want no one else to hear it, but it's an element of envy as well, right? At the same time, we're saying people root for the underdog. When that underdog actually becomes an actual player in the market, the perspective shift.
I think the reality of life is, and I think this goes in all aspects of life, people don't like to see success, right? Especially.
I think that's just a British thing. Personally.
No. Honestly, I think what happens is that when you become slightly more established, people don't like to see success, and this is also where the negative momentum can build. I think as a business owner, it's very important to keep your feet on the ground. I think it's very important to make sure you are not doing things to get cancelled. Having said that, I do think that whole cancelling thing is quite a lowly thing that's happened nowadays, that somebody says something and people go after that person. And to the extent they will dig into their personal lives and go really, really, I think like we have been business owners, but we're also customers. I've never thought about digging into people's personal lives. You're not happy with somebody's...
Next time your ASOS order comes late and you say, where's your TikTok post?
Like somebody's not happy with it. Okay, fine, you're really upset about it. If you want to leave a review. But that's it. To go to now make videos about this and do this, I think it's not the right thing. But then again, that's also part of negative momentum, especially if you've grown so fast. And another issue, and I know we've spoken a bit about marketing, and we've spoken a bit about staffing. Another thing to keep in mind about negative momentum and building too fast is the issue of stock. Now, if you've gone from £8,000 and you're trying to build to £20,000, your stock has just sold out, and you have no idea on how long you haven't calculated, right? It takes me 14 days or 16 days or 18 days for my stock to arrive, or however many days it is. It's gonna be some type of delay, right? In your thing. You can't sit there as a business with no stock. You need to have what you call a stock rotation. You need to have an understanding, okay, if I'm selling from 8,000 to 20,000 pound sales, my stock is going to finish this much percent faster. And if it's going to finish this percent faster, I need to make sure my orders are placed in at this point, and then you predict it. A day or two out late is not a problem. People, it's fine. But I think, again, stock is another one of those things that can build negative momentum. Imagine you've sold everything out and you've still got next day delivery and you've got sales of going to £20,000 and then bum, you've got no stock. And all your best sellers are gone. And most businesses, most of the sales will come from a few select products. Especially if you've got a business that has a lot of products, most of your 80% of your revenue is probably going to come from 20% of your products, right? The 80-20 rule. Not in all cases, but in most cases. If that's the case and you're out of stock and you're out for another 4 weeks, 5 weeks, negative momentum starts to build. Some people will stay.
And you still got to pay your rent. You still got to pay your staff, even though you got nothing to sell and nothing to sell.
Literally be standing around doing nothing.
Exactly. So that's why I think that one of the key things, right, that can help people solve this issue, I think, is to do forecasting. And I think it's to do, like, I mean, you can forecast as much as you want. You can do, for example, a weekly forecast. I know this is going extreme, but a weekly forecast. You can have a monthly
So when you say
forecast.
what should be on that?
Everything. You should know. Definitely fixed costs need to be in there. Your running costs. So for example, that's your employee cost, that's your rent, that's your utilities. If you've got a warehouse, if you've got a fulfillment center, then their costs, and your marketing costs, and your how much stock you need to purchase, and everything that's gonna go out of your business to the point of buying a tea bag, all needs to be in your costs, written on your spreadsheet. Then you need to know what your incomings are. Guaranteed incomings. This is the thing. Your outcomes are guaranteed. Your incomings are not guaranteed. Right? This is the thing. All the things I've mentioned, those are 100% they're going out of your business.
Yeah, whether you make a penny or whether you make a million.
Exactly.
All that money.
All that's going out. But your incoming is not guaranteed. Right? You can have a good assumption of what's going to come in. You can say, oh, do you know what? Based upon last week, I assume the business is going to be, this. And you know what? For some businesses, it might rain. Right? And because it's rained, people have not ordered, or it's become too sunny, or there's been a football match, or something's happened, and boom, it can be that volatile for some businesses, right? So if that's happening, you need to have all that. You have all your incomings written or your predictions. So you have a weekly, and once you've got up one forecast, then it's just about plugging the numbers and putting different case studies in. Also, you need to take in consideration each platform doesn't release money to you quickly. If you've got an omnichannel marketing strategy, you've got Shopify, maybe you've got Amazon, maybe you've got a wholesale website or somewhere else, whatever the case is. It's not always that it's an instant cash. Sometimes it's a day late, sometimes Stripe might be 2 days late, sometimes Shopify might be a day late, sometimes Amazon might be there's TikTok, and in some cases can be up to 2 weeks, right? So there's different delays. You have to put that into consideration in your forecast as well, right? Especially with the new way of doing business. So now you're doing that. Then you've got to have a weekly forecast, a monthly forecast, right? And then obviously you've got a quarterly forecast, you've got a year forecast, right? You've got a 2-year forecast. And then you need to make sure you're updating your forecast. You don't just get the forecast and then just switch it off.
Can I just add one thing? When you're making this forecast, just make sure you're just being very honest with yourself. Like, it can be very, very disheartening when you're putting in sort of the actual numbers, and the number at the bottom is not quite what you thought. And so you think, okay, well, technically, if I try really hard, I can get these numbers up. And then you start putting new numbers in, and you start putting in new projections of your sales, which are not really based on any reality. They're not based on previous historic performance. They're not based on anything that's actually physically happened. They're just based on your assumptions that something will happen. And this is where the spreadsheet becomes a bit pointless and a bit redundant, when you're only sort of filling it out to serve your own
ego, basically.
Ego.
And I think the way to solve that is often you would often have 3 case scenarios, right? You'll have a pessimistic or worst case scenario, you'll have a medium case scenario, right? Or a realistic case scenario, and you'll have the best case scenario.
Personally, I always do the worst case scenario.
And I think what the worst case scenario tells you, when you do a worst case scenario forecast based on historic performance, it gives you, okay, this is the worst it can get, right? And you prepare for that. So your cash flow in the bank and things in the account. If you go to realistic, you've also got that, and then obviously you got the best case scenario there also. But you never work off best case scenarios, right? If you hit them, excellent. Then your best case scenario, if it continues for a period of time, that become your new norm, right? And you kind of reflect from that. So you have your weekly, you have your monthly, you have your quarterly, you have your yearly, and then you have your best case, and you have 3 spreadsheets of different cases. Because once you've got that, all you've got to do now is, the way you set up your forecast, is go in and you put your figures in on a regular basis, and everything will automatically change in your spreadsheet, and you're like, okay, this is right, this is wrong, and you can see where your payments are due. And especially when you're growing as a business, if you've got 8 staff members, you've got 10 staff members, 20 staff members, you'll know, if you put in the forecast, at which point is the growth going to kick you. Because you'll know, okay, if I'm going to make £20,000 and I'm going to need this much staff, I'm going to order this much thing, I can't actually do that right now. Because my cycle, my turnaround of my cash is not going to allow me to that. I can't grow to £20,000 in the next month. I can only grow to X amount next month. Because when I do grow to that amount, then I can go, because that money is going to be in my account, I'm going to have a better situation, right? So that these numbers will give you an understanding of how quickly you can grow. Now, some people will say, well, yeah, do you know what if I've got, an investment coming? What if I've got £1 million to do that? It's no different. It's the same thing. Because you're going to do the same thing, but just on a bigger scale. You're going to have more stock coming in, more employees coming in. In fact, it's more risky when you've got more money. Because you're going all in. It's like, you know, on those poker things, you go cash all in, right?
I can't say I'm familiar.
Neither
with
can I, right? Yeah. And just to point out there, I don't, we don't gamble, but it's just a saying. I think I've been watching too many shows recently. But you're all in, right? All your chips are in. Instead, when you got big money, and because what you're doing is you're taking up all the costs up front, like your staffing, because you're assuming you're gonna do really good at marketing and all these things, right? And that is a big risk. Right? Those forecasts set up, right? Whether you've got a lot of money or whether you don't have a lot of money, whatever the case may be, is very, very important. And I know this might sound, right? This might sound very negative, right?
I was gonna say, I'm inside sweating, thinking, I'm never gonna grow a business again. I'm just gonna fail. I'm gonna do this. This is gonna happen. That's gonna happen.
But believe me, I think you'd rather the viewers and people cry and understand understand the stakes at hand first, and go ahead. And I wish I knew this 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. I wish I had watched something like this and known about this. Obviously, this information is all about when you're a business person and you're starting to grow. You feel like you're on the. You feel like you're. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not that stupid. But the thing is, that's why I use the statement "growth can kill," because you're growing so fast and you just want to keep growing. And there's also that feeling, you got more staff members. How much staff do you have? I have 50 staff. Yeah. How big is your warehouse? 10,000 square feet. I have 5,000. I've got 10 now. I've got 15. I've got 20 now. I'm going to buy the Amazon building tomorrow, right? whatever the case may be, right? So there's also that thing that you get a bigger office and bigger staff, and you feel like there's an illusion of things that are growing inside your mind. So I think, but with business, and the hardest thing to do, I would say, in business when growth happens, is to not get emotionally attached to it. You need to keep the reality on the numbers. You need to keep your eye on the numbers of the business and stick to the numbers and you make decisions based on numbers, not emotion.
And it's really hard though, especially when you've obviously, if you've come from sort of building your business from nothing to something maybe a little bit substantial, it is really difficult to separate your emotional attachment to the business from what the numbers are telling you. So would you have any advice on how you can...
I would. I don't think there's any one right answer to it. I think the thing is, everybody needs to have some, common ways of working, the common conduct, right? And I think you need to tell yourself when you do business, I am going to stick to the reality of the numbers. And no point. And yes, there will be some times we will start to think emotionally, but you need to very quickly bring yourself back ingrained in the numbers. Because if the numbers don't make sense, numbers don't lie. The numbers are saying you're making this much profit and you're going to go in the red if you don't do X, Y, and Z. You will have to make hard decisions. You may need to downsize your warehouse. Look, nobody is going to care if you've got a 20,000 square warehouse or whether you've got a 2,000 square warehouse. Nobody cares. Right? Neither does your customer, neither does anybody apart from yourself. You're the only person that cares about the size of your warehouse. Nobody cares if you have 50 staff members or whether you have 5 staff members. Nobody cares, right? Only you care. Only is the illusion to you that cares. So the reality is, don't forget the things that are around you. Stick to the numbers, look at the numbers, and let it tell you a picture. If you don't know how to look at the numbers, get somebody who can tell you. Or another way to keep yourself in check is always have a third-party person to audit your business, not audit your business, I use a bigger word, but as in to just look at your business from an external standpoint.
Just a sense check that things are still sort of...
Somebody who's not emotionally linked, right? Not your business partner, somebody else doesn't care about your business. They're going to give it
somebody that's got a bit of understanding of business, right?
Exactly.
Not your next door neighbour who
No, not next door neighbour. Obviously, in most cases, it will be a good accountant, or it'll be a good business, somebody who maybe if you've got a network of business people around you, and look, this is what I'm doing, what do you think? And they will give it to you as you want to hear it. Unfiltered. And that is the biggest thing in business. Taking people's unfiltered feedback on board, even if it stings, and be like, you know what, I'm glad this person said it to me. Because if the person hadn't, because remember, the inefficiencies that you have when your business is small, and if you don't fix them, when they become a big business, it is compound. Let me give you an example. Imagine, I'm going to make up a random case study over here. Imagine you've got, you send out a product that, let's just say you sell this glass, yeah? Let's say you're a business that sells something that's a glass product. And the way you pack the product, every week, you got a good number of emails coming through. The glass has reached them cracked. You've not sorted out your packing issue. You've not put more packaging material around it. You've not put double cardboard around it. You've not put a fragile sticker on it. Whatever the case is, you haven't done it. And you know that's increased. And you thought, okay, do you know what? Who cares? I'm going to scale anyways. I can absorb this. That's fine. No stretches. Guess what's going to happen when you go from £8,000 to £20,000? What's going to happen? You know that this was a problem. You've not fixed it. It's just going to come on a bigger scale, right? And it's just going to grow, right? More returns, more refunds, right? It may be one day you might be an order of somebody might have ordered 500 of these from you, and now or 100 of these from you. Now that's a big order that you're returning. You see, the inefficiency has grown. Or for example, you have a habit of getting back to people and customer services every 72 hours. I know business people who just not respond to the emails for 3 days because they're like, it's okay, I'm a small business. That's not going to cut it when you've got going from £8,000, when you're going from a small revenue to £50,000-60,000 monthly revenue, or if not more, whatever the case is. That's not going to cut it anymore. People want a same day response because people are used to buying from Amazon. People are used to things being instant. It's going to compound. Let's say you go from, let's say your logistics. Imagine you often have issues with your, Royal Mail picks up and DPD picks up, or whichever logistics company you use, and they once a week they skip you. If you've got a small number of orders, it's not a problem. People aren't going to cause an issue. Now, if you've got 500 orders going out in your warehouse and you've got problems with your logistics company and they don't turn up, and you've got 500 orders that don't turn up, you know what's going to happen tomorrow morning in your inbox.
Or
right?
even something a little bit more sort of realistic, like it takes you, 20 minutes to pack an order because you're very inefficient with
there
your
you
packing.
go. I mean, that is actually...
And I think it's something that a lot of people overlook because it's just like, it's not glamorous.
Exactly.
It's not something worth talking about. But
100%.
when you compound it by the number of orders, then that inefficiency just grows to the point where it will kind of really hinder the sales that you're getting.
And that will also dictate how many employees you need. For example, and it's to that level that the business owner needs to know that, okay, for an average order, it takes us 20 minutes to pack an order, right? To get this many orders out in a day. Now I'm going to grow. Okay, there's 2 ways of growing. One way of growing is, okay, I need 4 people to do this many, and with this many, I'm going to need this many more people. Or you think about, okay, this is how long it's taking me to currently package. Can I reduce this time? Some of the ways would be, can I get some of this so you compare the costs between packing it yourself or seeing if your supplier can do it for you. Can they do a part element for that? Can they do that? Can they give it to you in a certain quantity, right? You look at that cost, you say, this is how much it would cost me if I've got the supplier to do it. This is what it's going to cost me if I employed more employees, which is what it's going to cost me more. Another way, you might think, okay, I'm doing it by myself, it's costing me this much. What if I send it to fulfillment? What if I send it to a fulfillment center? I would save on my warehouse costs, and this is how much it's going to cost them. And you compare the two. You think, okay, which one is going to cost me more, which one is going to cost me less, right? And you do these feasibility studies. Or, for example, if you've got a warehouse setting, or right, just how your product is positioned. Like, do you go for, when you're packing this product, is your packing material a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute walk every single time? Or do you have it right next to you? Do you have your cutting material next to you? Or is it every time you go under the box? These things add up, especially when you're multiplying that by 100, 200, 300, 500, right? So I think just to summarize, because I think we've spoken about a lot, let's just summarize, I think, to end off, what are the red flags, I think, of going too fast? And just the red flags, I think I would say. So I'll go with first one, and we can go around and we can go around.
You're going to take all the good ones.
Do you know, I'll let you start,
But so signs that you're going too quickly.
Yes.
Would be, the big one for me would be that you're kind of running out of cash, even though your sales are improving and increasing and you're making more money technically than ever before, but you still got less actual cash in the bank.
Okay, how do you fix that?
You fix that by understanding where the leakages are happening. It could be a number of things. It could even be, like you said, too many refunds and broken things that are sort of absorb it. You could absorb it when you were smaller, but now because they're on a bigger level, what was going to cost you £10 to fix is now costing you a few £100 or a few £1,000 to fix on a monthly basis. That could be a potential leak. It could be, just setting maybe different terms with your suppliers, asking for, maybe splitting up the payments or paying after stock has arrived, maybe tweaking the business model slightly. So if you have a tendency to get out of stock a lot during the month, offering, and that the products are going to come in, a reasonable time frame, offering as a pre-order just to kind of cushion the sort of the days that you're out of stock. It could be a number of things, but I think from where it comes down to is just being really brutally honest with your costs and understanding why the costs are spiraling out of control that are not proportionate to the sales that you're getting.
So cash flow, I 100% agree with you. I think cash flow is probably number one on that list, because the numbers will always tell your story. Because in your cash flow, if you've got a good cash flow document, it will have your marketing cost in it, it will have your employee cost in it, it will have your fixed cost, your rent, it will have all of that in there, and it will tell you which one is swaying everything. Like it will be very obvious to you that if this number was up or down, this is what's going to solve my problem. right? So I agree with you. I think so. You took the best one. So the cash flow is one, and the solution is obviously auditing your cash flow and understanding where you can fix. I would go for I'm not in particular order. I'd probably say if I think customer services. I think your customer service inbox will tell you a big story, right? How people are interacting with the brand, and and relation to your customer services is your probably reviews. That if your customer service emails are getting out of hand and you're struggling to stay on top of them, and you're having to employ more staff to keep on top of that, and your negative reviews are getting up, I think that's probably a sign that you're growing too fast and your processes aren't in place and you don't have a control over, a number of things. Because only time a person the only reason somebody's not coming to your email, either they're not going to be happy with the product or the delivery or the quality of the product, if you're making it, and that's going to reflect in your reviews. I think that's another important one. Do you have one that you want to go with?
Yeah, I mean, the one that really resonated with me is that when you always feel like you're chasing a tail, you always feel like there's just fight. You're all day long, from the minute you start to the minute you finish your day, you're just putting out fires. There's never any time to actually think and do anything about it. But if you grow, then these problems are only going to compound. They're going to get more and more. So being able to put in the different processes that make things more efficient while you can, because these problems are not going to go away. If anything, they're just going to get more and more.
Absolutely.
And it's something that, without even looking at any numbers or looking at any spreadsheets, every business owner that's watching this right now will be able to work out for themselves that, do I feel like I'm in that position where all day long I'm just dealing with problems, or can I put some process in place now so that I'm in a position to grow?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a very valid point.
I also just want to add, I know you mentioned that it's been a very negative discussion about growth, but
there's nothing positive about business.
But the thing, I think that's the kind of the point that I think I'm trying to make, is that there are so many podcasts and so many creators and so many business pages and this and that only show the positive sides of
the
growth.
Side.
I'm not even just talking about the private jet studios and things like that, right? I'm talking about, they say, oh my god, growth is so amazing. I've gone from this many orders, now I'm getting this many orders, and this is such an incredible experience. And nobody is ever truly honest about what the negative side of that experience can look like as well. And I think most of the things that we've mentioned today will probably resonate with a lot of business owners, whether they've seen that same sort of problem when going from 2K to 8K or from 8K to 20K or even beyond. There's a lot.
100%. I think businesses, if people are doing a couple of million in revenue, they also have the same issues.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It just, all it means when you're doing a bigger picture,
they just become more professional at hiding it.
It's not professional at hiding it. The stakes are higher. They just don't realize it, because when it catches up to them, it bites you really, really hard, right? So it's very, very important to not be emotional. I think the key figure, and now that we're wrapping up, I think the key thing to remember is that will help you understand the growth calculator is, do not be emotionally attached to your business. Stick to the reality of the ground and the numbers will tell you a story, and from the story you can go and fix the problems. Sometimes you may have to take a step back to actually take a step forward, right? You may need to slow down for a couple of weeks, because sometimes they're not hard fixes, like fixing your staffing issue, or coming up with a process, or setting standards, or firing a couple of people if you have to in the process, or what.
But the thing is, I think just not burying your head in the sand.
Yes, burying your head in the sand is the worst thing ever. Guess what happens when you take your head out of the sand? If the problem is still there, it's still glaring. It's hot.
Yeah.
So I think.
I just wanted to quickly mention, just based on what you said, that the reason why we're talking more on the negative side of things, because you don't always hear it, because as a business person myself, I've seen it that people talk about when they're doing 10K a month, 20K a month, whatever it might be, and you expect to feel certain emotions, and how you're saying that it just feels like another day. But that's because this feeds into the overall sort of social media sort of landscape that we're in, that people only post what you want them to see. Their day-to-day might not look very different to yours, but you might be sitting there thinking, I'm doing the same numbers as them. Yeah, I feel like I'm panicking all the time. But this is the reality in the situation. This is what business is, really.
You can actually grow a business sustainably.
I know one way, actually. Yeah.
What's that?
LumaSense. So we are a growth agency. We specialize in working with D2C brands to grow their business sustainably and profitably. So to work with us, there's a link in the description below, and you can sign up for a call with us, and we'll look at your business in a bit more detail and work out how exactly we can grow it for you.